Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Young Pros Talk podcast. My name is Redmond. I am your host. And joining me once again for co-hosting duties, hopefully permanently. I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to talk about that off the air, apparently. Harris Nadeem.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going, man?
It's going good, man.
Good. And our special guest, very excellent dietitian here in Toronto, locally, downtown, Mr. Andy DeSantis. How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for
Welcome
coming.
to the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming. Sometimes I just want to repeat the things I hear for some reason.
Yeah.
So we could just get started, man. Just start off with my favorite, icebreaker question. Just tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Most important things you need to know about me. I mean, obviously I'm a dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
I got a private practice young in Davisville. I mean, that's the business side, the personal side. I love soccer. I love Kale. I mean, those are the two most important things you need to know about me. If a day goes by when I don't watch soccer, I don't check soccer news, I don't eat kale, there's no such day in my life.
So yeah, I know I talked about this briefly with you, but why is kale your favorite food?
Yeah. Do you love it because of its health benefits, or do you actually enjoy the
Right.
various tastes of kale? Like, can you cook it in a...
Various tastes. How
Yeah.
many tastes
Right.
does
I-
kale have?
There must be. Like, if he enjoys it that much.
Right. No, I eat, to be perfectly honest, I eat kale raw, completely
Okay.
raw.
Wow.
I eat usually chopped kale, and I like it. I truly, genuinely like it.
Okay.
So, I mean, I wouldn't eat something every day that I hated. And I
Mhm.
like it as much as it likes to help me with my
Mhm.
health. Let's put it that way.
Fair.
Mhm.
So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I seen those. You had some kale candy canes. Have you
Yeah.
ever-
I
that
got
was-
kale candy canes. It was a gift. A wonderful gift.
Nice.
It's from my girlfriend's mother, actually.
So yeah, I seen this kale, and I can understand, like, my favorite vegetable, not my favorite food, but favorite vegetable is broccoli. Like, I eat broccoli every meal, and I feel like broccoli is easy, right? So like, I'll go down when I'm at work. I'll go down to the grocery store because it's in the same building, and if I need some vegetables for lunch, I'll just go grab a crown of broccoli, and then I'll just chop it up and put it in the microwave for like a couple of minutes, and then that's my greens for the day. Probably, I won't lie.
Yeah.
That's probably the only greens I'm eating because I'm not eating vegetables. Do you eat kale? Would you eat it in the morning for like a breakfast, or?
I eat with dinner, and that's a great strategy you got, by the way. That's awesome. That works for you. Beautiful.
Yeah, that does. I mean, I prefer to have it something prepared. I don't always want to eat broccoli, but I feel like broccoli, if I need greens in a pinch easily at work
Yeah.
to make sure I get some, I go down to the store and just grab some really quickly.
Yeah, I like that.
So I know this is probably a very simple question, but I think sometimes people need a like definition of what this is. But what is a dietitian?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it in some ways it's like different things to different people, but for the most part, dietitian helps navigate you in the world of food and nutrition and supplements. You know what I mean? You come to a dietitian presumably because you need some help. Like, you want to know what it means to you to eat well. You want to feel your best.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And you want to do what you can with food and how you eat to achieve that. And a dietitian can help guide you. And of course, there's tons of nuance and different facets within that. But for the most part, we just talk about you, and we talk about food, and we talk about how you and food interact.
Just trying to create a
Right.
healthy relationship with people and food.
That's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, because I know it's very hard. Even though we did just have some chicken sandwiches. But
Yeah,
that was
we did.
You ratted him out right
Happens.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was me. That was my fault. I don't have. That's my cheat meal for the week because I've been trying to eat very healthy, and it's
Right.
been. You know what I have to say? This week, made some slight changes, and I have to say I feel a lot better. I feel like I am getting some results with my change in the diet and working out more, and I feel good. Although I'm a basic cook, like, I really will put some salt and pepper on some fish, throw it in the oven, and then that's it. I'm not making any gourmet meals.
If it makes you happy,
Yeah.
that's what counts.
It
I'm
actually
sure we'll
does
get to
not
that.
make me
Yeah.
happy. I wish I could make some gourmet meals.
Yeah, okay. So you're in that situation. See, that would make me happy, but yeah, I get it. Gourmet is always better.
Even in the office, I was like, yeah, I usually don't use like onions and garlic to cook, and they were like, what universe do you live in where you can't even use
So
onions?
how do you go around calling yourself a good cook if all you use is the oven?
Did I say that? Did I say I was a good cook?
I feel like you've told me before you were good. Yeah.
Off
you're like,
air?
Off
yeah,
air?
Off air. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Well,
I
he
was
was like, I'm good, but basic.
Off the record.
Yeah,
Off
yeah.
the record.
I am a good cook. Like if I have to,
no.
Yeah, okay. Caught you. That was,
Yeah,
that
it
was,
wasn't even- it
that
wasn't
was
even hard.
easy.
Yeah.
That was so easy. All right, we're done.
I mean, I am a good cook. Like I can cook if I want to prepare. You know what it is? It's me, and first of all, it's time
Right.
Mhm.
and preparation. Like I really
Yeah.
don't want to chop up some onions, chop up some garlic,
Yeah.
whatever else, and put it in the.
So, in your experience in working with people, do you find that that is often one of the problems that people have is the time and preparation aspect of meal?
Yeah, I mean, that's, for some people, that's a big barrier,
Mhm.
right? Time, motivation to cook, skills required,
Mhm.
all those three. But some people have all of the skills and all of the knowledge, and they don't put it to action. Everyone's different, you know what I mean? But you're absolutely right. I mean, like the time thing is huge because you know how life is. It's like unless you're living with robotic efficiency, it can be
Right.
hard. It can be hard to always prepare a solid meal, with
Mhm.
all these ingredients and all
Yeah,
that.
100%. Do you ever work with clients if they don't have the time to cook their meals and the options they have available to them to like have healthy meals or whatever they need to do, whatever they're trying to do to accomplish their goals?
Yeah, I mean, you work with someone with where they're at, and we do the best that we can with where you're at. I mean, if someone come into my office and they eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner out, I'm not going to expect they're going to start cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If that's what they want to do, beautiful. But that's not a reasonable expectation right then and there.
Right.
So
Right.
you work with people with where they're at, you know what I mean, and with what they're willing to change, and baby steps. Small changes can take you places when it comes to food.
Mhm.
And just about anything else in life, realistically, as well. I mean,
So, another basic question, and I know it's basic, but I feel like it's just to help clarify
Yeah.
what things mean, right? A lot of people have an idea. A lot of people think a diet is something you do to just accomplish a particular end goal, and that's true as well. But like, what is a diet? Like, is it that, or is
Right.
it the way you eat, or is it how you eat stuff, what you're eating, things like that?
right. I mean, honestly, at this point, like, I don't even use the word diet because of the negative associations. I
Right.
prefer actually to refer to it more like a dietary pattern. So, like, a dietary pattern is what you do in sum over the course of weeks and months, the different characteristics of what you do. Like, diet, obviously, at this point, diet is usually is like used in reference to something short term, usually something that involves omission of like foods that you like. Nothing that I'm really doing. I'm much more concerned with someone's dietary pattern and the sum of what they're doing. You know what I mean? So the way I see it, like, you achieve health by checking certain boxes, not by not doing something. You know what I mean? Because what you don't do doesn't really tell me that much about you. What you do tells me much more, right? So, you could tell me, oh, Andy, I don't eat cookies. Okay, well, that doesn't tell me much. But if you tell me, you know what, Andy, I try my best. I try to get broccoli when I can, get some fruit when I can. Okay. I'm seeing that what your pattern looks like a little bit more. That's much more valuable to me.
And so you're someone that's actually very knowledgeable about this, and your knowledge has only been growing over time. Like, how much have you found that your personal diet plan or diet regimen has changed over the years? And, like, when you do change it, is it, like, minor changes, or do you, like, massive overhaul, or, like, how does that work?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I mean, 10 years ago, so tofu, lentils, avocado, 10 years ago, I didn't eat any of that stuff. Now, those are massive parts of my diet. And funny enough, I just wrote a pescatarian cookbook last year, okay? And I am right now almost fully, minus those chicken sandwiches earlier, I am largely pescatarian. Now, that's perhaps partially from writing the book, learning more about but also that's just the direction I was trending to. So it was not I don't necessarily do big rapid changes. That's not in my character. I ease into things, and I became less and less interested and less intrigued by chicken and beef. Not that there's anything wrong with eating those things. I just got less intrigued by them, and I started eating more fish and more lentils and more tofu, and I'm just kind of like, rolled into this new dietary pattern, right? And believe me, I've had a lot of chicken and beef in my life. So don't get me wrong. It's not, no problem. But that's where I'm at right now.
Right.
I think that's kind of where I'm going to, is the more pescatarian diet. Mainly just because fish has a lot more protein and smaller serving sizes that I'm learning, because the other day I had was it basa? I think it was basa fish.
Right.
I cooked basa fish for lunch, and like one fillet was like 200 grams, and it's got like 30 grams or something of protein, and it's very low calorie. It was like 160 calories, which is hard to do, but I have your cookbook.
I appreciate that.
I have not really used it yet.
It's okay. You don't have to say that.
What is it,
Sorry.
What is so the premise of the book is it's pescatarian, and it's like, is it 5 ingredients?
It's 5 easy step pescatarian, I think.
Basically, that's the title, right? It's the easy, like I can just regurgitate the title. It's the easy 5 ingredient pescatarian cookbook. Okay. I think that's what the title is. Yeah. It's basically, the first part of the book gives you a little bit of a gentle scientific discussion about the merits of pescatarianism, why it may be worthwhile to eat more like a pescatarian, which is the real message. It's not a pescatarian conversion book. It's like, if you're not a pescatarian, here's why you should eat more like one, and if you are, here's why you can feel good about it. And then the rest are just recipes that allow you to eat more like a pescatarian.
Right.
And 5 ingredient, well, that's the theme of that particular book, because obviously you brought it up earlier, right? Cooking, time, simplicity.
And
those are massive.
It's cooking, I think, for a lot of people is very intimidating, because it's something that you have to do every day, and like, you're never taught anything about it until never really, until you have to do it. And
right.
It's almost like finances. It's like,
it's not a bad comparison.
Financial etiquette and like cooking. You know what I mean? Like some people are taught to cook, some people are taught finances, but I feel like most people aren't
taught either.
Yeah.
And then they spend all their finances on
and then you have to be an adult. You have to take care of your life. Right. Take care of yourself. And you're like, oh, I need to manage my finances and cook. You know, like that's a lot of trouble for me.
Right.
But next question for you though is when did you originally become interested in becoming like in nutrition in general? Like how did you go from this path of learning about nutrition, wanting to learn more, and then becoming a dietitian?
Yeah. Super clear answer. I mean, when I was really not super healthy when I was a teenager, and in my younger years, I was I was really underweight. I didn't eat well, and it took me such a long time to learn, and it's a journey. I'm still on to learn what it meant to eat well. You know what I mean? And what really clicked for me is there's no way people need to be going through 4 years, all these phases I went through. I mean, there's got to be someone out there who can help you get through that in less than 4 years of self-exploration. And that's the gap, basically the gap I try and fill for people.
Right.
Did you look for a dietitian for yourself going through that phase, or did you?
I didn't, I didn't, and it never even crossed my mind. But if I did, and I found someone who resonated with me, it probably would have saved me a lot of grief, but
But isn't the grief the stuff that makes you who you are today? Because you must have learned a lot during that.
100%. There's no question. That makes you who you are, and makes you appreciate things, and gives you much more empathy in terms of when you're relating to clients. Right. So you're 100% right. But if I could do it differently on some level, I probably would have saved myself a few years and got on a sharper path sooner. But you're right. Some lessons when it comes to food, you have to learn yourself. Yeah. So it's a fair point.
So for yourself, how long did it take you to decide on what was? I know you just talked about the dietary pattern of going to more pescatarian.
Right.
How long did it take you to decide that this is probably the best type of diet for myself?
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, stuff like even like lentils and tofu, right, which facilitate you eating more like a pescatarian, less meat, because they're plant-based protein sources. Those are things that 10 years ago I didn't even eat. So. And let's say I've been a dietitian, I don't know, how long has it been? 8 years. And I wasn't pescatarian when I started. I literally only started becoming one recently. So, it's a long journey. But I'm not saying pescatarian, also keep in mind, like I'm not saying that's the end point for everyone to get to. Right. We can, that's not what I am saying though is like there's merit to eating more like one for anyone. Unless, of course, someone's a vegan or vegetarian and they're not eating fish at all. I respect that, obviously. But for the general person, the omnivore who's had a lot of meat in their life, it's not a bad idea health-wise to consider trending in that direction. But that doesn't have to be the end point. That happens to be my journey, my current point, and we'll see where I'm at in another 10 years. You know what I mean? Decade challenge.
As a dietitian, how do you filter all the misinformation people get about diets?
Yeah.
And what's like you're talking about the pescatarian, and it's just recent for you, and then And as you know, you'll hear a lot of people for one side like vegan is the way to go, and the other side is like, no, eat meat is the way to go. Like, how do you filter out the misinformation to provide people with the right information and figuring out what works best for them?
Well, I mean, you do what you can, obviously, if you're working with someone in the office setting. But this is the reason why I blog, right? When I see trends in people's understanding or misunderstanding of topics, I generally will write about it, right, in my blog. Soy is a big one. Soy is a big topic of misunderstanding. Veganism is another one, right? So that's why I wrote a blog on the Game Changers documentary. Yeah. The truth, as it always does, it lies somewhere in the middle, but it's not always clear cut. And different people, you can achieve health as an omnivore, as a vegan. It's about, there's certain key foods that are generally associated with your best health. If you're eating those things, you have freedom in terms of like what classifications, quote unquote, of eater you are, you know what I mean? But there's certain key foods, like vegetables are a great example. It's very hard to be at your best health without vegetables. Doesn't matter what you call yourself. You can call yourself whatever you want. But if you don't eat your vegetables, well, that's going to be tough,
Right.
I had a question in my head. And
so those keto diet people, then, are they just surviving on, like...
Those keto diet people? That's how you're going to describe them? As
they don't eat any vegetables, right, essentially?
No, they do. They do,
they can eat vegetables.
They can eat a lot of vegetables, from what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's starchy vegetables that someone on the keto diet wouldn't eat because there's basically a carbohydrate cap. But that's not to say they can't eat broccoli or kale.
Right.
Now, the reality is the keto diet, right, there's many different ways someone could do a keto diet, okay? You could eat beef and cheese all day, or you could have salmon and kale and avocado all day, and you would be doing the keto diet in both cases, essentially. Right. So those two things, those two styles of eating, those dietary patterns, that term I referred to earlier, couldn't be more different. Sure, they could fall under the keto umbrella, but I'm much more concerned with the dietary pattern, not whatever name you want to give it, right?
Fair.
So you could see how those are both keto, but like how could they couldn't be more different,
right?
So it's complicated.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Keto, I did keto for a little while.
Yeah.
And what it's all about, it's net carbs, which is carbs minus fiber, I believe.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
like you basically, however many carbs you have, you subtract it by how much fiber you had that day, which is kind of hard to, because it's kind of arbitrary to some degree, and you want to get to like a net carb amount of like 20, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I believe, the number varies. You see it online, 20, 30, 5% of your total caloric intake, in and around there. I mean, you could have a whole conversation, multi-part conversation on the keto diet, why people do it, why it might be not a good idea, why for some people maybe they swear by it and it's changed their life. I don't refute or belittle those claims either.
Right.
I don't believe it's the most sustainable choice for most people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's for myself, and this is obviously anecdotal, but for myself, it wasn't sustainable.
What was it? What was unsustainable about it?
Just the amount of carbs you could have. Like it just was.
Well, you couldn't have really.
Right. or you couldn't have. Like just
none.
Pretty much, right?
One banana. That's it.
Not
done.
even maybe half a banana. That's like too many carbs. That's like 20 carbs in a banana already, right?
Yeah.
So it was just that, like, and I honestly, I don't crave carbs that much, except for like potatoes. Like I love potatoes,
right?
But like when I was on keto, I craved carbs so much, like chips and potatoes and like anything, bread, even bread. And I don't even like bread. Like,
right.
I hate bread with a passion, but oh man, that garlic bread in the store that's pre-packaged and just put in the microwave for a few minutes looks so good to me. So for me, it wasn't sustainable. And I did also feel uncomfortable with the high amount of fat you're supposed to intake. You know, I'm not 100% sure about how much it was. I don't remember. But it wasn't something that I found myself. Have you ever tried any
keto diet? No.
Like any diet, like any popular diet?
Well, I tried to be vegetarian for that 1 week after I watched the Game Changers. But other than that, no.
And see, I would even call it. I wouldn't even call vegetarian pescatarian a diet. That's like a dietary pattern. Like, although I guess arguably you could actually, to be fair, being a vegan or vegetarian, on some levels is exclusive, almost to the same degree, kind of, not really, but kind of like a keto diet. Now, like if you're being a devil's advocate approach, obviously I don't believe them to be equivalent from that perspective.
Right.
But if someone was making the opposing argument, they could make that argument, but there's a lot of reasons why that wouldn't hold, but you could.
Yeah.
So, man, sorry. You were supposed to catch me when I say so. Sorry,
he didn't tell me that.
I haven't even noticed, to be honest. So
I do this thing where I always, before I'm about to ask a question, I say so and they called me out on it the last episode, and I still do it. So I've been conscious of it.
Right.
But I haven't been doing a great job, as he knows. So
there you go.
I hadn't noticed, actually, to be honest.
Now I'm gonna notice, man. I'm gonna notice the rest of the time. I'll call you out.
I'll just cut all of this out. I'll just call
it. Say it again, I'm leaving. Take the headphones off. I'm done. I can't be associated with anything like that.
So you talked about.
It's okay. You know what? If that's the worst thing,
I feel like it must be like a comfort thing. Like there's probably some psychological explanation as to why someone would do that.
You're giving your brain time to catch up to, or your mouth time to catch up to your brain. I don't know.
There are people who probably have PhD papers and research on why people do that, so don't feel bad.
Well, people do it a lot, right? Like we use a lot of filler words, so and like I use them several times,
right?
And I just don't know how not to. It's almost like it makes you feel very comfortable, you know, to get to the next point of whatever you're trying to do.
You just gotta make what you say next count.
Yeah,
right? That's it.
Well, I'm hoping this counts. It counts, but
Sorry,
I'm a writer. I'm not a speaker. Actually, that's not true. I do a little bit of speaking.
Well, actually, so the writing. Have you always been into writing?
I can honestly say that I have. Since I've been a teenager, I've always kind of fancied myself. Like I'm actually not a super confident person, funny, like take that for whatever, but I've always like known that I've been a good writer.
Right.
And so I was fortunate enough when I was a teenager to kind of nab a couple of part-time gigs writing for a couple of free magazines, and it was natural for me. There you go. I just said there you go, right? There's some fillers. And I ended up just carrying that into blogging, and with a little bit of hard work, a little bit of luck, landed a few book deals, and keep the party going from there. And I love writing. I'm truly passionate about writing.
That's nice. Yeah, nice. I was actually about to ask you about your books, because we talked about the 5 easy ingredient pescatarian diet,
something like that.
And I meant to grab the book and bring it with me before I got here, but I was in a rush.
Oh, good.
And in Oshawa.
And in Oshawa. Yeah.
So. Hey, you might find it in a bookstore there. Probably not.
I don't even know where the bookstore is. No, there was a Chapters in the Plaza
bookstores
somewhere.
In Oshawa.
Yeah. But how did you come about that opportunity? Because I know you published 2 books, correct?
I got two for now.
And
more coming.
Nice.
More coming. You'll see soon.
So how did you come to that opportunity to even get a book published?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's a good thing for anyone out there who's a passionate writer to hear. My philosophy was this: I'm gonna put the work in, I'm gonna publish content, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. And maybe that's not the best approach. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that if I keep putting out good content, someone's gonna notice, and I'm gonna get my opportunities. That was my plan, and that's pretty much how it played out. I was a regular blog writer. And then a publisher reached out to me. They said, "Oh, okay, hey, seen your blogs. We like your work. Do you want to write this book?" And they had a book for me. Wow. You know what? I said, "Yeah, that's basically my dream." And that was it. It was just that straightforward. I mean, just minus the years of toiling beforehand writing blogs. There may be a more efficient path, but then the day, like, if you're a writer and you presume to be a writer and you want to get gigs writing, you have to have a portfolio of some kind. You got to show your competence, because everyone sure wants to be a journalist or a writer. You got to have a platform, I believe, where you have your work showing, so people interested parties can see what you're about.
So so you were always doing your own blog, or you were ghost blogging for other people as well, or?
So I had my own blog, and I would write for anyone who would take my work. So I would reach out to these online health magazines, and I was writing for free, right? I was writing for free, a lot of free articles, just whatever I could to get my name in places. So, I mean, Impact Magazine is a Canadian health magazine I was in. If you want to know a funny story, there's a
love to.
It's not that funny, but it's like it's kind of one of those full circle ones. So when I was starting out, there was a magazine out of BC. Okay. By the way, I love them because I've written for them a lot now. Alive magazine, okay? I reached out to them when I first started, and I pitched them some ideas, and they rejected me when I first started because I was not really anyone to take note of, and I'm not saying I am now. But a couple of years later, they had a new editor, saw me online and she reached out to me. I said, oh, and her name is Tracy, lovely lady, and I've written multiple articles for her. I said, oh, hey, yeah, I'd love to write for you guys. A couple of years ago I tried and didn't work out, so this is nice.
Yeah.
And she found that hilarious, and if she happens to listen to this, I'm sure she'll find it funny. So for anyone out there, great lesson for young people. If you get rejected, you never know
try
where you're gonna end up.
Yeah.
You gotta have faith in what you do. You gotta be humble,
Absolutely.
have faith in your ability, and just do the work. Right?
Yeah.
Those are 3 things I generally.
And I love
tell
your
myself.
writing. By the way, I think it's a lot of fun. I read the one about the game changer, and there was a couple of other ones. I can't remember the titles.
There's a lot of them on there. Don't worry.
Yeah, and you're very consistent, which I thought was very impressive. Because you how do you come across the things you want to write about?
Yeah, I wrote a blog on my sources of writing inspiration. Now, I wonder, what did I write on that blog? My clients, honestly, are probably my number one inspiration, because if I notice a trend in their understanding or their curiosity in a topic, then I can fairly enough extrapolate that to the general public. And usually that works well, right? So when I see clients constantly coming in with concerns about a topic, I will generally write on that topic. Another way I do it, I type in Amazon top selling supplements. I go online. Okay, what are the top selling supplements on Amazon? That means I know the public wants to know about those supplements. I'll write about them in that case. So those are 2 strategies I've used previously. And sometimes I just write about stuff that I'm interested in. Like I'm into intermittent fasting. Okay, right. It's something I like to dabble in, something that interests me for a variety of reasons. And I researched it. So I've written numerous blogs on fasting because it's a topic of interest to me. And I mean, obviously, a lot of people are into it as well. They're interested in it. It's one of those hot kind of pop topics. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So you said you're a casual intermittent faster? Or at least that's the impression that I got from your blog, is that you kind of fall into it based on your habits.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, or even what I say, an intuitive intermittent faster, which means if I wanted to, I could go 22 hours without eating and then eat a big meal. I'll be perfectly happy. But I also don't turn my life upside down to accommodate some arbitrary window of eating. Right. So I use it. It's a tool for me that sometimes I use it, and I do enjoy eating large meals. Like this is forget the science, the metabolic effects, purely practicality. Sometimes I like to get my hunger up to a certain level where I can eat a large meal, because I don't enjoy eating small amounts of food. And I do that because that's what makes me happy, not because I don't do everything out of optimization, right? I'm not like a robot. I'm just a person. So my happiness is in my,
I struggle with that a lot too.
Really?
It's like trying to be a robot in how
you struggle
I
with
eat.
trying to be a robot.
Yeah, because you want to do a good job. So you set these deadlines, and you think okay, if I fall short of these at all, I should be upset. So I try to be more robotic than I guess.
Right.
But this is
I think
just
happiness needs to be more of a component of how you eat as well.
You have to look forward to what you eat. That's a big thing for me with myself and my clients. You have to look forward to what you eat. Eating and food, no matter how you approach it, should improve your quality of life. That's what you're supposed to do.
I'm on this own personal journey of mine right now. I've had no sugar all of January.
Right.
That's not true. I had a coffee.
You had
this
ketchup
morning.
right now.
I didn't have ketchup. Oh, sorry. I did have the.
Well, what do you mean by sugar? Let me grill you a bit. Because
So I haven't had any desserts.
Okay,
I haven't
so
had any.
right?
I haven't had any cookies.
You had fruit?
I've had fruit. Sorry.
So you've
I
had
should
sugar.
clarify. I have
which is
had
fine,
sugar,
which I totally support. By the way, fruit's good. You should eat fruit.
I've
Concern
had
me if you didn't.
I've had sugar from fruit, but I haven't had sugar from outside of dark chocolate, which is okay, very low sugar content. But I haven't had sugar from desserts and
refined sugars.
Refined sugars. Except for today, I did have coffee because I was up early, and I can only drink coffee because I hate it with sugar and almond milk. But to go back now that I think about it, there's something you said about soy. What are some of the misconceptions about soy? Because for me, I've heard that soy is bad for men because it increases estrogen. It's high in estrogen or something like that.
Right. That's one of the big ones, right? So it's for men. Men are concerned that it's going to reduce their testosterone level, or the idea of kind of the man boob type of thing. You hear that sometimes. That's a big one. That's the biggest misconception for females. Females are generally concerned about breast cancer, that it's going to increase their breast cancer risk. So those are the two primary concerns. And the reality is that the evidence is There's no evidence to suggest that having soy. In fact, like people who have more soy, because again, soy has antioxidants, fiber, vitamins, minerals. It helps you eat less meat because it's a protein alternative. So generally, when people eat more soy, they tend to have better health outcomes overall, right? Of course, there's a whole lot of extra detail to that, right? You can have a whole... People can go back and forth about soy until the cows come home. No pun intended.
Is this
right?
Is this soy like soybeans or like even the processed stuff like soy milk and like tofu and all of those things that are like processed products of soy? Like, is it applies to them as well, or just the soybean?
Right. Well, usually when you do these studies, right, like they look at total intake of soy containing foods, right? So they're not gonna. Now I'm not intimately familiar with all of the methodology, but generally if they look at soy intake, they're gonna look at soy intake across all the soy containing foods. But from what I've seen, it's not worth worrying about whether it's tofu or whether it's soy milk or whether it's just the intact soybean. You know what I mean? Now some people are purists; they like the idea of having whole unprocessed foods, and there might be someone who's intimately engaged with the soy research that may say something to the contrary to that. And if you have them on the podcast, cool. Maybe they'll teach you a little more. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not worth analyzing. Soy helps you to eat less animal protein, and generally, that's a good thing.
So are there some things that, like, soy protein has that is very nutritious that, like, maybe meat protein won't have, and vice versa?
It's a good question. Well, I mean, first of all, so soy is a legume, okay? Soybeans are legumes. Legumes, as compared to meat, have a ton of fiber, okay? Meat doesn't have fiber, okay?
None at all? Like,
no fiber in meat, unless it's with, like, a whole grain bun or something. You know what I mean?
Well, I was hoping that there was fiber in meat for some reason.
Right. Yeah, no fiber in meat, right? So that's a big one. The antioxidant levels, right? So we know antioxidants are these compounds found in certain types of plant-based foods and other foods as well that are generally promote good health. They have like a beneficial biochemical functions in the body, all that stuff. High in legumes, not so present in meat, right? So right there, those are two big differences. Then on top of that, you look at saturated fat. Okay, so saturated fat it comes from animal products, okay? So it's the fat that's primarily found in most animal products. Fish obviously have a different type of fat. Primarily, they have more omega-3s. They do have saturated fat as well. Saturated fat we know to be associated with not really great heart health, increased cholesterol levels. Okay, saturated fat levels from soy, legumes, 0 to minimum. Okay, very little. Okay, so some processed products may have some.
What are the good fats? Because I feel like I always get confused. Is it trans fat? Is it unsaturated fat that's good? Like, which fats are the good fats?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I mean, trans fats are the ones that are essentially banned. So those are the worst ones. Those come from, like, hydrogenated oil and things like that. Those are essentially, like, outcast. The quote-unquote good fats, right? So omega-3s are a good example, right? That's what's found in fish. Right, it has anti-inflammatory capabilities. It's considered an essential fatty acid, which our bodies can't make it, so we need to get it from food. It's found in fish and flaxseed and walnuts and in some eggs. Then there's other type of fat called monounsaturated fat. Okay, that's found in stuff like almonds, tree nuts, olive oil, and that fat we know to be good for our heart as well, because that fat is shown to lower cholesterol, lower blood cholesterol, which again, high blood cholesterol, or not again for the first time I'm saying it, but high blood cholesterol can increase the risk of heart disease, or it's a risk factor anyway for heart disease. So it's good fats come from these foods that we generally know to be good for us. So it's not so much that it's the food comes first, because the food contains the fat and a lot of other stuff, right? Okay. So almonds, for example, have fiber, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and monounsaturated fat. Yeah. So it's not just that, right? That's a key part, but it's not just that.
Right.
I'm really happy you explained that. Yeah. Because I've been so confused, like, which one is the bad one? Which one is the good one? Because there's a trans fat. And is there unsaturated fat, or did I just make that up?
Well, unsaturated fat actually refers to the there's different levels of, so there's monounsaturated fats, and there's polyunsaturated fats, which is the omega-3s. Yeah, so it gets more complicated, but you don't need to break it down that level. But yeah, unsaturated fat are literally, as it sounds, not the saturated fats. The other, everything else.
Yeah. Wow, right? I'm so happy you're here, man. So
So what level of basic education do you think people should have
that's a great
for them
question.
to approach life, somewhat meaningfully and mindfully with regards to what they eat? Because, like, all this stuff is always changing.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe, the typical person doesn't even need to know all this stuff. So what are some of the basics that would help someone,
Like
be
us.
more mindful about what they choose to eat?
It's honestly, that's an incredibly hard question to answer, because
Fair.
what I'd be inclined to say is find someone, a professional who resonates with you, who you feel like you can trust. But then again, that's very hard to figure out.
Right.
Okay, like that's easy for me to say, but there's a lot of people who go down kind of the garden path, celery juice, all this other nonsense, right? And there's nothing. Look, if people like celery juice, by the way, it's not going to harm you. I don't think it has the benefits attributed to it.
It's technically just like dirty water, right?
I don't want to offend anyone who likes celery juice, and there's no problem. Again,
don't worry, I'll take
good.
the heat. I'm pretty sure it's just dirty water. It's just dirty celery.
It's fibrous too, is it not? Yeah.
There's stuff in there.
But
There's celery.
But
right?
doesn't juicing vegetables and fruits actually diminish the nutritious content presented in that particular vegetable or fruit?
So it's not necessarily a straightforward question to answer, because what happens is when you chew food, right? Okay, you elicit like a response in your body. Certain like enzymes are released, hormones are released, and that starts the digestive process, right? That's how we're meant to intake food. And when you blend food or juice it, you're delegating that like important task of digestion, which your body, it's like, if you don't use it, you lose it on some level. Your body is meant to be worked. Your digestive system is meant to be used, right? So when you delegate that task consistently to a machine, a high-powered machine, I think it's safe to say you're not getting everything you should be getting.
Because you're not doing the process of like eating, so you're not activating those digestive enzymes that help break down the food. Yeah,
and again, like, I'm not sure the level to which absorption differs with smoothies versus whole food, and there's nothing wrong with having smoothies. So I'm not saying this to be like never have smoothies. I'm just saying if you're always getting your healthiest food in a blended form, I would encourage you to reconsider. Okay,
interesting.
That's what I would say.
Okay, that's very interesting, because I don't eat smoothies that often,
right?
And I prefer them. Or drink. Yeah,
if you eat them, I like to see you eat a smoothie. Maybe that would be a podcast.
No, there's
I got you. I'm just being silly.
Don't they have smoothie bowls though? Like certain places have smoothie bowls.
Okay, fair enough.
Good recovery.
Yeah, you're sharp on that one. Okay.
But yeah. So like I can agree with that. I don't. For me personally, I don't really like to drink my food, if that makes any sense, or drink my calories.
It's like, it's like people are very busy, so it just kind of makes sense to do it sometimes. But
but even making a smoothie takes some time for me. Like I try to make them in the morning, and I'm like, I don't really have the time to like get the almond milk and then because I try to be really fancy, put some chia seeds in it, put some cinnamon in it, and things like that. And I bought frozen kale.
Respect that. Although don't blend that. You gotta respect the kale. You gotta eat it whole. But look, man, I'm not. People love smoothies. Smoothies are fun, right? So like, all good. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, I would be concerned if a client, they only ever ate their vegetables and blended. I would say you're not getting everything you could out of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I
wouldn't have expected that at all.
No, especially if it's like greens and stuff, because I usually put Yeah, I'm not gonna buy frozen kale again, by the way. But I prefer
fresh.
I prefer the fresh for sure, because I'm a very fresh spinach person. But for me, I find buying frozen helps it last long. It's about keeping it.
Well, you're not eating quick enough. I got no problem. Kale goes really quick in my place.
But I just like I don't. I guess I will have to, because you know what, I did see in your book a really good recipe for was it like shrimp soup with kale, and I've wanted to try that before we had this podcast, but I just never got around to it. But
you got some time tonight? Cook it up. Stop by the grocery store after.
I did actually. I went to the store because I had and I seen a few recipes, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I gotta grab this frozen shrimp and all of this." And I grabbed all the stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna make this," but I just haven't.
It's okay.
Found the time.
Better late than never.
So, my gosh, that's gonna be the death of me right there. To go back to the book, you got 2 books published. how long did it take you to get those books published? Like, what was the process? Like, was it a back and forth with the publisher? Like, redo this, rewrite this, or write a new one, or can we get another recipe? Like, what's that process like?
So what I can say is this, okay? I mean, every publisher is different.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a publisher who has their own system, but their system is basically a secret, right? So what they do is their approach.
Their process.
But what I can tell you is they reached out to me and they asked me to write a book on a topic, and one way or another the book got done. Now there's recipes in the book I'm not a recipe developer, so they bring on a recipe developer as well. So I provide. I'm more like I'm a writer. I'm a researcher writer. I don't do the recipe game, so they bring someone else who does. Some people theoretically have both those skills. My colleague who I wrote my first book with, she ultimately went on to write her own books because she could write and cook. She had both skill sets. I actually don't have that second skill set. So I'm always, if I write a book that involves recipes, I'll always be reliant on someone else. But yeah.
Are you using any of the recipes out of the book? Or do you?
That's a good question. I'm not. So you know how you talk about basic cooking stuff? I am. There's a definition of that. You know, I rarely do elaborate cooking. Like if you want to know what I ate last night, I mean, what I had some sautéed tofu, some bagels, some lentils, some eggs, right? No spices. And that's I'm perfectly happy to eat like that. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Had some avocado, some kale, of course, you know. Yeah. So I'm not like a big recipe guy. Like I'll put some lemon pepper seasoning on fish, but you know, I don't do fancy cooking. So you talk onions and garlic. I can't remember the last time I prepared onions and garlic. And they're good for you, by the way, right? Yeah. For most people, unless some people get digestive issues with them, but if that's not you, they're good for you. But I'm in that boat, you know. I'm not like a quote unquote foodie. I'm more pragmatic with my food.
I understand.
But you still love food and you enjoy eating it.
Absolutely.
So what's the reason for keeping it simple for yourself? Is it more like just so that everything's fresh, or? I'm probably a little bit lazy as well, okay,
right?
Fair.
And also, but no, beyond that, it's just the time component is one thing, because like even cooking basic stuff takes time. So for everyone out there, even cooking stuff simply takes a lot of time. Yeah. And I just genuinely enjoy eating in that way. Like it's not like I'm not restricting or punishing myself. Like that's how I like to eat. Like I get joy from that. It's for me. If I'm hungry, I'm ready to eat. You know, if there's bells and whistles, cool. But if there's not, also cool.
Right.
Yeah, I have to say I'm pretty happy in the same way. Like I am a food, like I love food.
Right.
But when it's not prepared by me, you know, like if I can go get it from somewhere else, because there's something like I am never making seafood paella in my life.
Right.
You know, I like it. I enjoy it. It's delicious. But am I going to take the time to put that together at home? No, I'd rather go out and have somebody who's like cooking that.
Yeah.
For a living.
That's
to
it.
Make that.
That's what I tell people. I might tell my clients, like, when you go out, you got two options. You can eat whatever you want, cool. Or if you're feeling like you want to eat something, you know, that you know to be quite healthy or whatever, and you wouldn't make it for yourself at home, if there's a vegetable or a fish that you wouldn't make at home, that's the other thing you could do, depending on the mood you're in. You might be in the mood to eat whatever, or you might be in the mood to eat something like quote unquote healthy that you wouldn't make for yourself at home. Those are kind of the two ways I tell people, because people always ask how to approach eating out.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, some nights you might want chicken fingers and fries. Cool. Or maybe some night you want like some rainbow trout and baked sweet potato that you just wouldn't cook at home for whatever reason. So use that as an opportunity. Or sushi, because most people aren't rolling up sushi at home. Right?
I took a sushi making class. I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
That was
there you go. So I'm wrong.
I did it. It was like a date thing like a year
That's
ago.
Cute.
It's a 1-day class?
It was like a 3-hour day class.
It takes 10 years to teach sushi in Japan, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't come out as an expert at all by any means, you know. But you can. What was cool was like they give you. There's certain levels, and I would plug them, but you know that's gonna cost some sponsorship money for me.
Yeah.
But
potential sponsor.
Potential sponsor. But it was cool because they showed you basically how to. What was great was they showed you the history of sushi and where it came from and how it started and which like era in Japan it all started in those origins.
Right.
And then you got to make like 3 different styles of sushi, and there's like the basic. There was the avocado roll, I think was one, and then there was something a little bit more. But maybe it was California roll. But you got to eat it, and I have to say like it was pretty filling, you know, and the rice was delicious. Like I would suggest the class to anyone to take it. Like it's a really good fun. You could do it for groups.
But you won't tell us where it is though.
No,
not until they pay you.
Not after that.
Because
you know what? Because the last episode we plugged a lot of organizations, and I was like, yeah, we did. He kept saying, you know, the S word, you know, so like Spotify. So which we are on Spotify. But I don't want to start. I guess I have to be more conscious of that, like just saying name dropping places, you know, because a lot of people are name dropping. Because I'm a podcast fan myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and like they go through this little segment of like, hey, these are all our sponsors, and they go a little skit or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, that's a really cool sponsor. I would love to have them too.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just no name dropping. But
I hope the Kale growers, maybe we're gonna sponsor you after today.
Kale growers, is that a real?
For sure, it is an organization. They don't bother sponsoring me. They why waste their money? I'm doing all the work for free.
Yeah.
So,
but if they're listening to this,
I'll let them know. I'll write them kale growers. You know,
there's got to be a Kale Growers Association in America.
There's an association for everything. I just learned that. You know, like if it exists, like the thing exists, it's probably out
some
there.
level, some size.
Yeah.
Might be 2 people in a garage, but there's an organization.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about being a dietitian? You know, that's great. You got, you know, helping people find their dietary pattern or dietary path. You know, like what's your favorite part about being in that field, in that profession, and doing that for people?
Yeah, I think that the easiest answer is to say, yeah, you're changing people's lives and stuff like that. But I think when you're so involved in it and you're busy and you're seeing so many people, sometimes you lose sight of that fact that, you know, you're actually, you know, you're really actually helping people improve their quality of life. So that's definitely a part of it. But what I love about specifically what I do is I have a great variety. So I help people on a variety of levels. Like on Instagram, I can bring joy kind of through laughter. Okay. On my blog, I can bring like education and empowerment to a lot of people with my writing. And in person, one-on-one, we get down to the nitty-gritty and we really take people to different places. So, I mean, I get joy in a lot of different ways. And when people ask me, like, if should I be a dietitian, I'm like, you know, you only do this job if you love it. That's the only reason, is if you want to help people to eat healthier. And okay, well, that's such a vague statement, but, you know, from there, you got to do this because you love it. That's why you do this job. And because I do love it, it's easy. And what, like, you know, the idea, you know what they say, the cliche, like, if you really like what you do, it doesn't feel like work. And, you know, I've been kind of doing 6 day a week the last half a year and probably for most of this year. And it's pretty true. Like, when it's a privilege to get to that place, you know, but when you're there, it's like, yeah, it doesn't really feel like work. So I kind of like it all. You know what I mean? I like all the different parts of it. And I'm fortunate that I have different avenues. You know, so yeah.
You never come across someone who's like they don't care about eating healthy, or like that's not a goal is there. They just want to, like, have you ever come across that where like a part of their goal is not necessarily to eat healthy?
Well, usually, okay, if someone comes in to see me, it's because they've on like the free market of all the people you could see, they for whatever reason, you know, I don't know what it is, but they chose to come and talk to me, right? So that means on some level, they care what I have to say. So I think that what some people have, though, it's not that they don't care about eating quote-unquote healthy or whatever, but it's like they're so far detached from what that could possibly mean for them because they've gone down so many roads and they've taken advice from questionable people and they're so like almost disillusioned. So that happens. Right, and it's my job to pull them back in and kind of like let them hopefully rebuild some confidence. And that happens a lot, right? There's a lot of people who have not great relationships with food because they've done diet X, diet Y, diet Z, diet Z. How are we supposed to say it in Canada? I can't remember. I'm dating an American. I can't remember.
I say Z, so I'm okay with Z.
Yeah, but you're American, so.
But
you are American.
I am American. You have to ask. He's from Pakistan, so
yeah, I just go with whatever is appropriate.
The Queen's English.
Yeah.
So wait, what is it in Pakistan? Is it Z or is it Z?
I think Z. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah,
no. That's important. That's more important.
So how scientific is the process of getting into the nitty-gritty with the client and kind of trying to figure out, you know, what the hell is wrong and how do we get them to a state of, is it a scientific process? Like, do you have to send them to clinics or whatever to get blood work done and all that stuff?
That's a great question.
Right. So for me, like, having done so obviously one of my primary goals, like, just from the purely, so when you say scientific, I'll take that as like vitamins and minerals. There's so many different ways you could do that.
Yeah, sorry, that was a vague thing,
term
that I
you
used.
could say, like, is there a specific approach and how you deal with people?
Approach, yeah.
Yeah, behavior change, that's a science.
Yeah.
Vitamins and minerals, that's a science.
Yeah.
But I look at their dietary pattern across 5 key groups of foods, and how they interact with those 5 key groups of foods tells me a lot about the overall balance of their diet, because there are certain groups of foods that contain certain nutrients that if you're eating those foods, you're very likely going to be covered for most of your vitamins and minerals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's a big part of my approach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's definitely, like, and I have my methods, right? Having done this for so long, I have quick and efficient ways to really learn what someone's dietary pattern looks like, right? Going back to that word dietary pattern, that's what I'm always looking at. That's what I'm most interested in.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And based on that, you can determine like their macro breakdown and things like that, how whatever their goals may be, if they need X amount of protein or X amount of carbs and fats and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's honestly, that's a whole different game, right? Because you know what you have to do is there's a small demographic of people who are interested specifically in all of that, in looking at, you know, how many carbs and stuff to eat and stuff like that. Most people, that's like first of all, I don't believe that that's necessary, but I respect that some people like that level of detail and they're into that, right? So there's a fine line. That's not my thing. Like, when I see someone come in my office, again, when I say dietary pattern, that means I don't necessarily care what you do on one day. I care what you do over a period of time, right? And I'm much more concerned with the foods that you eat, more so than, which may surprise you, than the amount per se that you eat. You know what I mean? I'm much more concerned that you eat certain foods that I know are going to be taking you to where you want to be health wise. That's a whole other game. When you're talking there, and believe me, there are people who come in, they're like, listen, I want to eat this amount of calories, this amount of protein, just tell me how to work out the math. That's a much smaller demographic, right? Because you got to realize that requires a level of desire to do that. That is, and I'm not saying it's good or bad to do that. It's just some people like to do it, and I respect that too. That's fine.
And so, what sort of resources are available for these people that come to you? Like, how do they do they see a doctor that tells them, like, hey, you know, you need to fix how you're eating, and then they kind of refer you, or like, because I don't even know how it'd go about, like, now that I know,
right?
Like, before that, I wouldn't know how to even go about something like finding.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Google, you know, it's a big thing, right? Doctors do refer. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I mean, one of the biggest things that I see is people have high cholesterol, right? There's relatively quick and simple dietary changes you can make to lower your cholesterol. But 2 of the top 5 prescribed medications in North America are for lowering cholesterol. That's pretty significant, okay?
Wow.
That figure may have changed in the last 2 years, probably not. So, and high cholesterol is a leading risk factor for heart disease, which kills the most people in the States and the second most people in Canada. Okay. Right. So, yeah, that's a big one. So doctors can play a role, friends and family, word of mouth, Google, Instagram, all sorts of ways. And generally, so my services as a private practitioner are not covered by OHIP.
Right.
So many people, actually, a vast majority of people do have third-party insurance through work, through, you know, the usual providers that you hear about, and then, you know, some people also pay out of pocket, but there's no OHIP coverage.
But it is possible for people to have benefits through work to engage in services.
It's more than possible. It's common. Okay. Quite common. Very common.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. You didn't know that, really?
I don't think so. No.
Yo, you need to check your insurance. Well.
Yeah. Well, I'm a freelance now, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
My days of being able to take advantage are gone.
Well, I'm in the same boat, my friend.
I tell everybody I know that has insurance through work, like, use those benefits, man. Like, even 100%. All of them, man. I mean, it's not a lot. You know, sometimes it's not a lot. Sorry, sometimes it's like $500. But
right.
I think I was talking to somebody recently, and they said they get like $1,000 per like practitioner, you know. So like, I'm like, use them, you know. But that's an interesting question.
Please do.
Hey, come see Andy if you need a dietitian.
Please. I'm at Young Davisville.
But that was a great question that you had, because it is like, people don't know where to get the information from, and people don't know who to trust. And you know what I feel like can be distracting is like when you get these health guys or people come on your like YouTube ads, and they're like fit and like in great shape, and it's like, oh, they must know a lot about, you know, healthy and nutrition because hey, they're fit, you know, and sometimes they don't really know. And I notice a lot of these guys, there's one guy I know, I don't know him personally, but like I know of. Every time the new hot diet comes out, he's like the professional in that new hot diet, and he's telling you how to do it. So like,
yeah, that's how you stay relevant, I suppose, in certain platforms like YouTube or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get information, and even for myself, which is, you know, I did seek out for myself, like, how do I get this information? Because online, like I said, you have people that are like, oh, you know what? Keto is the way, or meat and vegetables is the way. Then you have the other side that's like vegan, no plant-based protein. And you're like, who's right? Like, who should I be listening to? You know, and how do I know who should be listened to? You know, and is that something that you get a lot from clients? Like, I just don't know who to listen to. What should I do?
100%. 100%. Tim Ferriss is someone who a lot of people look up to, who I see, and he seems to have, I'm not intimately familiar with his principles. They seem to be reasonable, like among the more reasonable from these online personalities. It's hard. Like I just said that earlier. It's hard. All I can do is I do my thing. I try and be visible. I try and release good information that I feel comfortable with, that is evidence-based as much as possible, that is objective. But it's tough. It's tough out there because in the world of health, you know, absolutely how you look, how your body looks is worth a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
especially in this era of Instagram and like,
it's tough. Yeah. It's tough. And those, you know, if someone looks like in great shape, credit to them, because that's a reflection of a probably lifelong commitment to fitness, but doesn't make them necessarily a PhD in nutrition.
Yeah.
So that's an unfortunate complication that we have to work through.
I also feel like part of the problem is like these people, because they look great, they are trusted, and they may not be the most trusted source of information for these things.
Yeah,
you know, and
100%.
And then I feel like a lot of and this is
some people have a PhD and they
true.
They look
that's
like
very
athletes.
True. That's true.
You know, cool.
But and I guess if you're an athlete, clearly you might have some knowledge about.
You have some knowledge about your experience.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And if you're the reality is, if you're like a high level in anything, right, your experience in pursuing that achievement is worth value, but it doesn't mean that you can extrapolate that onto all these other people who are not you or who are not living in your context.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that is where someone with not the extensive knowledge base will fall short, and will certainly fall short when the questions get complicated, and more than just personal experience and what you did and what works for you. That can only take you so far. Now, it's not useless information, but it's not enough. Surely it's not enough.
So do you have to work with people in helping them break these mental processes and behavioral patterns as well? In terms of, like, you know, like what we're talking about, like people have negative thought processes around their food and things like anxieties or whatever. Is that a component of what you have to work through with them as well?
Yeah, on some level, you know, you have to encourage people to challenge their thoughts, you know, challenge the rationality of their thoughts. And one of the big things I tell people is there's kind of three things. Like, you have to be honest with yourself. Okay, always be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. Please, you be honest with me. But even more importantly is to be honest with yourself. So what I mean by that is, like, you know, if someone has like 6 McFlurries every day and they feel they have a stomach ache or something. This is a really extreme example, not a real example. We can be honest in saying that course of action is not in line with optimizing your health. We can be honest and say that, okay? But we can also be honest in saying having a McFlurry on a Friday night, right, is totally fine, right? So you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be fair, right? And you have to be kind to yourself. So that means when you're not sure if you should, like, where your honesty and fairness takes you, err on the side of kindness, because many people are way too hard on themselves.
Right.
I definitely am one.
I think that's one of the things I read in one of your articles as well. Is like the people really fixate on the negative instead of focusing on the positive. And do you have to help them break through that? And do you, like, how do you find doing that? Because, like, you're a dietitian, but there's like this emotional component that's now involved in the work. That
right.
Do you ever feel uncomfortable doing stuff like that, or?
Well, you know, when I identify it, I offer insight and guidance to the best of my ability. You know what I mean? If I can identify a recurring negative thought pattern where, let's say, you know, in the world of like behavioral therapy, there's a term called like catastrophizing, okay, which is when anything diverges from some preset plan, you make it to be the end of everything. Like, oh, I had a fry tonight. All that healthy eating I did for the past 6 months is done. Forget it. Right. So if you identify those patterns, you have to call them out and encourage people to challenge them and challenge the rationality of those. Is that really true? Like, truly, do you really, if you're being honest with yourself, is that really the case? Right. And that's one way to do it. You know, that's a whole other discipline. Right. And that's where other, you know, there's I mean, obviously therapy, all sorts of different types of therapy and behavioral therapy and stuff like that. But obviously, if I identify those unhelpful patterns, I'm going to do what I can within the context of my work with a client, which is not always extensive, depending on their willingness to commit and all that. I'm obviously going to try and help them identify the patterns of thinking that are not helping them. You know what I mean? It depends on the person. You know what I mean?
I would have to say for myself, I kind of know what that is. And this is part of the reason I haven't been eating sugar, like cookies and desserts like that.
Sure.
Because I feel like I go on the deep end. Like I just, once I have one, I'm just like, okay, now I want more. Now I just want to eat more cookies, you know.
Right.
And even though I did go to the Lindt store recently and bought like a 30-pack of truffles. And
Lindt store, that's the chocolate store. You went there on a mission.
Yeah. I love Lindt chocolate, man.
Fair.
You know,
I've had chocolate today. I had some chocolate earlier.
Was it dark chocolate or was it?
It was dark chocolate. I like dark chocolate.
Yeah, I love
you know
dark chocolate.
I mean?
Most people don't like the dark chocolate because it's bitter, but I don't know.
70%.
I don't notice
90.
it. I have 85. It might as well be a Kit Kat bar. I like it. You know
85 is pretty good too.
90 is good. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised that 90 actually
90.
has.
It's not bad. I've had 99. It's all right.
But it actually has like you've had 99.
I've had 99. Yeah, it's not like a walk in the park. It's just fine, right? It's okay.
Yeah, which
you do it just for fun.
Lindt now has, and I know I just plugged another organization, but Lindt now has 100%.
That's gotta be expensive.
You know the excellent bars, right? I think we eat some of the same.
Sure. It's
an excellent bar. That's 100%.
Okay.
So I have no idea what that tastes like.
For the bar? $100 for the bar?
Probably
$1 for every percent.
Oh god.
But where was I going with this? Oh, I went to the Lindt store and I love Lindt chocolate and I was preparing. My birthday's next week. So
happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in. I'm going to give me some of these Lindt truffles, and I'm not going to have them till my birthday. Right? And then what always gets me is when you walk into the Lindt store, they offer you a free piece. And I never deny that shit.
Go to Lindt store more.
No, you definitely shouldn't have done that.
I always take the free piece.
Yeah.
But then they had this special where you get like, I'm just giving all their promotions away right now. Like,
where's the Lindt store?
Yeah.
There's a few. There's actually one close to where we are, like Young and Bloor. Like you know how Bloor has the underground area.
Gotcha.
There's a Lindt store there.
Okay.
But the one I was at was at Shops and Don Mills.
Okay. Cool.
And
find a local Lindt store near you.
Yeah. Not
maybe I
can.
Maybe I could ask them for
imagine next time on the podcast we're all having dark chocolate bars.
That'd be great, right? That would be a dream.
Yeah.
To get man, that would
That's
be
a great sponsor.
I would love that to be my first.
You can have like a thing of chocolate and everyone's guessing.
Listen, I will put a pound of that shit right here for them to see. Okay, if Lindt sponsor this, chocolate galore, it's about to happen.
He's like one of those big bunnies just taking it out, putting it back.
But they had so they had a deal going on where if you spend $20, you get like a free excellence bar.
Cool.
So I was like, cool, yeah, I'll get they didn't have any 100% though. I would have gotten that one.
Yeah.
So I just took the 90 and they had a 99. So I've had the 99, not.
It's thin. It's different, right?
It is different.
I mean, I like it. I don't find it as often, but I have it just to say more than anything, just to be like, yeah, I had 99. Yeah.
But what I found surprising between the 85 and the 90% is that 90% has more calories. Like 10 more calories
per serving, yeah. You never know exactly what the ingredients are because all the 90% is saying is the I guess the cocoa mass. There could be other ingredients, right? But at the end of the day, you get the one you like. Like by that point, it's whatever. Have 85 and not have 90. It's all good.
Do you eat it by itself or do you have it? Like I like it with a cup of tea.
Personally, I have it. I have it with usually bananas and nuts. Like that's my snack basically. What I eat very often. Okay. Or peanut butter or something like that.
Peanut butter and chocolate. Oh, I guess that's a pretty good. Yeah, do you make one of those? You make like a Lindt peanut butter sandwich, like put some, like get a couple of squares.
That sounds messy. I just eat it like I'll have a chocolate, I'll have some peanut butter, I'll have a banana, I'll have a chocolate, I'll have peanut butter. It's like a robot.
It's a rotate through all of them.
I don't need to do anything too elaborate. Just get it in, you know.
Yeah.
I eat a lot. Honestly, I eat a lot of chocolate these days. I like chocolate.
I love chocolate, but it's something. I'm gonna say it's something life changing about the dark chocolate, and I think it's because you can enjoy it more often than you can like the milk chocolate, which is high sugar. Like we're talking like 20 grams of sugar and stuff like that. Whereas the lower cocoa. But you know what? I keep mentioning Lindt. I don't know anybody else that does chocolate that at that level of cocoa at like 85-90%.
I think Lindt is supposed to be like, from what one of my clients told me, the Lindt is legit. It's supposed to be. I didn't realize this because it just looks like another brand to me. Yeah. Because I'm not so, I guess, engaged in the chocolate game, but apparently Lindt is supposed to be like the best stuff.
Oh really? And like in the world, or like in North America, I guess.
I mean, I guess that's available commercially because I mean it's a European company. I assume like Lindt sounds Austrian, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Or German, perhaps.
Well, they also own Giraldi, I think it is, right?
Oh, you're doing a serious Lindt plug here, man.
Listen, chocolate is where it's at. I love chocolate, so like, yeah, but I'm gonna move on from chocolate.
We're gonna name this podcast Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Which is interesting. I did not give this podcast episode a title.
Right.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
We'll just call it Food for Thought. That was something that Andy mentioned earlier. So this is Food for Thought.
I like
episode 16.
Featuring Willy Wonka.
I'm like an hour in, and now I want to mention what the title of the podcast is. Well, okay. I'll cut this part out and put it in the beginning, and then people will know what's happening. So I wanted to ask you, we talked about people's dietary plan are different, pescatarian,
right,
vegetarian, vegan, keto, whatever the case might be. But are there some foods that, as a dietitian, that you encourage people to have in all diets? Obviously vegetables, but like, is there any particular, like a specific food that like everybody should have this in their diet?
Right. Well, I mean, you can have a whole list. I mean, vegetables are a food group.
Right.
So 100%, hard to, unless you have some medical reason not to. I mean, vegetables have to be there, right? For optimal health, vegetables, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, fiber, everything you need for your body to work properly. Fruit is in there as well, although like that's become more controversial, of course, because
of the sugar.
People have on some level irrational fears about sugar. Right, nuts and seeds. In the absence of allergies, nuts and seeds are associated with good health. Legumes, plant-based protein sources, right? Very important. And fish, fish is very unique as a food because it has a lot of vitamin D and a lot of omega-3 fatty acids. If you go on Amazon and you look at the top-selling products, supplements rather, vitamin D and omega-3 are near the top, because they're hard to get because they're not found in that many foods. Fish happens to have both an abundant supply, which is really why it ends up being a food that's often associated with good health. Not that you need to eat fish. Like if vegans, vegetarians who don't eat fish are out there, and you can be perfectly healthy without it. But if you're an omnivore, fish is, as far as I'm concerned, the most important source of animal protein.
Are there, I just thought about this question. Somebody wanted me to ask this.
Right.
Are there, certain diets that work best with people for certain medical conditions?
Yeah, I mean, that's for sure. I mean, yes. I mean, generally the best answer is yes. Now, there's many different medical conditions that have dietary implications, right? So what comes up? I mean, for example, some people have, celiac disease. They can't have gluten,
right.
Okay? That's the easiest example. There's allergies. Okay, those are the obvious examples. And beyond that, there's implications. Certain medications, certain foods don't go with certain medications, certain conditions. So the keto diet, funny enough, was originally
Atkins, right?
No, keto diet was originally made. No, I see what you're saying. Like the Atkins diet is actually similar to the keto diet, but the keto diet itself, the idea of having so little carbohydrate that your body shifts to ketones as an energy source, was kind of derived as a treatment for epilepsy, and it helps. So that's that's one thing. Now I don't employ that for the treatment of epilepsy in my clients, because I'm not in like a clinical setting, so I'm not intimately familiar with that. But that is, I believe, it's originally why it was kind of created. So that's a perfect answer to your question. So yeah, absolutely.
Great. I had another follow-up question, but I completely forgot. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, all good. Too busy thinking about chocolate. I got you.
Yeah, I seen on my paper. I wrote chocolate down. So that's all I'm thinking about now.
99.85.
So do you always write about food and dietary stuff, or are you into writing about other stuff as well? And
yeah, good question. So I write about food and nutrition. I write about supplements because supplements are popular, but then I also write reflective pieces, opinion pieces. Okay, so I wrote a blog on I write blogs on also my journey, what it's like to have a private practice, how to be a better writer, my journey from blogging to being an author. I've written that blog, things like that. So I write about food, I write about supplements, and I write reflective pieces and pieces sometimes just about writing and then things also how to be a better dietitian. Like, I have a blog on empathy, which is an important tool for healthcare professionals. So it's all somewhat related to me and what I do. But yeah, I don't just write about food, even though that is like the main thing I write about. Yeah.
Right.
What would you say is the most common question you get from clients regarding diet?
Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough one. What should I eat?
Yeah,
I guess
what should I eat? What do I eat? Should I eat carbs? Should I eat soy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like, sorry to cut you off, but I feel like a lot is what we talked about earlier, is the misinformation.
Oh, 100% it is.
Because like I'm like, oh, I shouldn't eat a lot of carbs because it's bad. And I've heard this all the time, carbs are bad. Carbs are the enemy. And then there are other health professionals that are like, oh, carbs are your friend. You need carbs for energy. It helps you. It's a good pre-workout thing and all of these things. So like, I feel like you probably come across a lot of people. I would imagine, obviously, I don't know for sure, but like people who are worried about what they should eat because of the amount of information that's telling them, don't eat this, don't eat this, eat this.
Right.
So like, how do you, as a dietitian, like, how do you like combat that, I guess, to help people ease, like, no, everything in moderation is okay?
It's it's incredibly hard, because I'll tell you right now, I mean, so let's use soy as an example. I mean, if someone has come in to the office and they've heard somewhere, right, that soy causes breast cancer, and they're convinced of that, it's really hard. Doesn't matter if I've written a blog, doesn't matter if I have all these references. If you hear something like that, and you can't blame them. You cannot blame them. But how eager are they going to be to try tofu when they're convinced that that's the case, even if it's on bad evidence, even if it's from an irreputable professional? How hard is it going to be to suggest otherwise? So on some level, I respect that, because I'm in a privileged position where I have an intimate understanding, and by the way, I'm far from the smartest person in the world of nutrition. Right? I don't have a PhD, nothing like that. So I have a certain level of knowledge that's above the average person. But on some level, I'm detached from how little really just the average person knows, and what it's like to hear these things with no knowledge of food. It's incredibly influential, and it could lead you down, and it leads so many people down. What is like a dark path on some level. So it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard. I try and do my part, and someone comes to my office, it means they are willing to put some level of faith in my guidance and my judgment. So that helps. But there's some battles that are tough. Like some people, are so convinced that they can't have sugar from fruit, and they won't eat fruit. And all I can do is, in a gentle way, give them a little bit of feedback, but then support them with where they're at to do the best they can with what they're willing to do, because many people have built up so many damaging thoughts and feelings about food over time, and you got to deal with that in the best way possible, and it manifests differently for different people.
So what is the myth with sugar and fruit? Like, I think that's something for myself I can't even wrap my head around. Like, you shouldn't eat a lot of sugar, but sugar in fruit is okay, or like too much. Like, I've had diet plans before where they would say, if you're gonna eat fruit, it should be eaten in the morning, you should eat it in the evening, stuff like that.
All sorts of nonsense like that.
Like what, like, I guess, like, how bad is sugar actually, or is it that, like, I don't even know. Like, I'm so confused. I don't even know how to ask the question properly. Like, what is it about sugar and fruit that people are afraid of, or what's bad about it, and what's the misconception about it?
Well, I mean, like, it depends what they heard. Some people think that sugar is the thing that's going to make you gain weight. Some people think that it's, like, on some level it's toxic or something like that. Depends what they've heard. It all goes back to dietary pattern. You know what I mean? You know, what is the bigger picture look like? You know, what is your eating style characterized by? If it's characterized by, I don't know, like mostly candy, okay, sure, for you, sugar probably is problematic.
Right.
You know, if it's characterized mostly by fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, I could care less about how much sugar you eat. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's where the honesty component comes in. You have to, you know, so the dietary pattern tells you everything. You know what I mean? So sugar as a word is not so useful.
Right. I read somewhere that your average intake of sugar a day shouldn't be more than like 32 grams or something. Is there truth to that, or should you be not trying to, or like?
That sounds made up. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Health Canada. So I used to work as a student for a place called the Canadian Sugar Institute. So this is actually an interesting story, okay? So it's an advocacy, essentially. Okay, my old boss might refute this exact definition or whatever. It's basically a sugar advocacy group. They advocate for the objective assessment of sugar in the public sphere, right? So they don't want people thinking sugar is is poison, which it's not, by the way, okay? Sugar plays an important role in creating certain types of foods and making certain foods that, by the way, are very good for people that they wouldn't eat if they tasted like crap. Sugar allows certain foods that are good for us for more people to eat them. High fiber cereal is one example. Yogurt, decent food for many people. Okay, not everyone's down for 0% plain yogurt.
Right.
Okay, so sugar helps with that. Now, when I was a student there, I went into that rotation thinking sugar is crap. It's the devil. Okay, it's the worst thing. But when you go there and you realize, you see the research and the evidence being broken down, you see the role sugar plays in the food industry, and then of course you learn more beyond that as a professional. You realize like it's not even worth a second thought. You know, your sugar intake. It's not even worth a second thought. That's why I tell people all the time. But again, you know, what gets clicks online is polarizing information. Nobody wants to hear it's okay to have sugar. It's okay to work it in. You know what I mean? Like everyone wants to hear that this sugar's crap. It's this, it's that. You know what I mean? So
do you have you ever created a diet plan that includes like someone having the dessert so often if they want to include that in their diet plan? Like,
I'm of course. I mean, like I said, like, you know, food is to be enjoyed and you got to look forward to what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I'm not actually, as a rule, generally, like I don't tell you what not to do. I'm not that's not what I do. I tell you the things that I want you to do. I want you to incorporate more of this, more of that, because like I said at the beginning, you know, health comes from the things you do, not the things you don't do.
Right.
Okay. So if you have a dessert, like I could care less. It's good for you. I hope you enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I hope it's one that you enjoyed. But like, okay, let's make sure we, you know, I want you to also have some vegetables this week.
Right.
You know what I mean? So no, it's like that's, you know, like I'm really a believer food's supposed to add to your quality of life. You got to enjoy what you're doing. And of course, there's more nuance to it than that, and it's individualized, and everyone that means different things for different people. But as a general rule, I'm not concerned with telling you what not to do. Yeah. It's easier just to focus on positive goals. That's like a big philosophy of mine. So,
yeah. Have you noticed an increase in like people trying to be healthier and seeking health-based options in the time that you've been working as a dietitian?
It's really hard for me. That's a very like broad question. It's hard for me to measure that because, you know, that's also, you know, it's all confounded by my increasing visibility.
Fair.
You know what I mean? As a business, as a business. So I can't really judge that fairly. I can definitely say that, for example, veganism, vegetarianism is increasingly popular, right? There's more vegans and vegetarians today than any other time. Obviously, the Game Changers documentary played a small role in that. So What the Health years previously, right? So people are more aware of animal ethics. They're seeing more and more of this stuff, treatment of animals on Instagram, the videos. And those are some of the harsh realities that we all have to face up to. You know what I mean? And I'm not begrudging anyone who eats chicken or beef. We had, like you said, we had chicken sandwiches just before the show.
They were delicious.
They were. It's tough question to answer.
So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk to you about calligraphy.
Yeah, don't worry, nobody. Kaleography. People butcher it right up the center.
Yeah. So tell us about. It was an interesting thing when I seen on your website that you have this section called calligraphy.
Calligraphy. Don't worry. I'm gonna explain. You're gonna don't worry. Once I explain you where the word comes from, you're gonna get it.
Okay. So yeah,
I should have worn my shirt. I forgot.
Yeah, I should have mentioned it to you.
I only have smalls left, right? So there's a problem. There you go.
So yeah, tell us about calligraphy.
Yeah. Okay. So by now, okay, we've been talking for a bit. I love writing. Okay. I have books, whatever, blogs. I love writing, and essentially, like, as a dietitian, I've used writing to be an important part of my career, and it's an important thing for professional development, for visibility, all of that. So my idea was, calligraphy is a combination of two words. It's kale, which is a food, my favorite food. Yeah. Okay, essentially, well, it's up there, if not my favorite, which represents like health, vitality, and then calligraphy, which represents like creative writing or writing in general. So I combine those two words together, and what calligraphy is, it's like my writing mentoring service. So it's for up and coming or experienced health professionals who want to break into the online writing game, who want to start blogging, who want guidance on their writing style, they want feedback on pieces. So what calligraphy is we together write articles for your platform. So I've had numerous clients, nutrition students, established professionals, even chiropractors who aren't dietitians, and we come up with topics. We, based on your passion area, we go through some drafts. I give you feedback on your writing style. Then you publish the article, and I help you promote it through my platforms. Because that's a big thing, right? Is when people are starting out, you write an article, but who's going to read it? So that's where my platform, my promotion can help. And so that's essentially what it is.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just like for young health professionals in the writing world to kind of get their feet wet and to start learning what it takes, just because I just believe in the world, like we're a video and all that, I just don't believe writing's dead.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that. I mean, it's helped me immensely.
I feel like it's definitely not dead. Even, I know Instagram was all about pictures, but like sometimes
captions
people
are
have
big.
Oh my gosh.
Captions are key.
There's Twitter as well.
There is Twitter, but like sometimes those captions on Instagram I'm not reading it.
Right.
It's just too long.
But a clever caption is worth more than anything, right?
Yeah.
A clever caption is a clever caption.
I think part of my reasoning for not reading a lot of captions on Instagram though is just because of the font is too small.
Right.
There's no way to enlarge a blog post. The font is much larger, right, than it is on a Instagram, and it's on my phone. I'm just like, I can't really. My eyes don't want to adjust to try to read that shit.
Fair.
Some people do play with that. They do caps or they do some weird fonts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a fair.
Can you change fonts in Instagram, or is it a standard font?
I don't know. Never looked into it.
You can. I've seen it. I don't care to research how.
Yeah.
But you can.
Okay.
I mean, but I love your Instagram.
I appreciate
we talk about
that.
Instagram. Some of your posts about
it's food humor. That's to say that we'll leave it at no, we don't have to leave it at. I'm just it's like it is. People got to check me out. It's Andy the RD, right? I'm sure you're gonna like plug me somewhere.
I was gonna plug you at your end, but yeah. I love
my gram.
I seen the pictures, and one of them had me dying. Something about soluble fiber. And like I can't even remember the quote. But
I can tell it to you right now. I remember.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So let's. You guys want because you say yourself you want this podcast to be educational, right? So I'm gonna drop you some nutrition education, and I'm gonna turn it into humor, and then I'm gonna kind of show you what I do on Instagram. Okay. So first of all, there's something called soluble fiber. Okay. Soluble fiber is found in certain types of things like oatmeal, sweet potatoes, certain fruits and vegetables. It's very good for your blood sugar and your blood cholesterol because it has absorptive capabilities in your digestive tract, okay? So why that's good, when something that absorbs water, it slows down the movement of things through your digestive system. That's good for your blood sugar because when things move more slowly, they take more time to get into your bloodstream, okay? It's good for your cholesterol because the absorptive aspect of soluble fiber, well, one of the proposed mechanisms is that it absorbs like essentially some of the fats in your digestive tract, some of the acids, which then your body has to reach into your bloodstream to replace, and it's pulling cholesterol from your blood to then replace some of the fatty acids in your stomach. That's like a super simple explanation. So that's why it lowers cholesterol on some level, but it's absorptive, if that's even a word. So my quote was like, I think it was something to the effect that like, your ex is like soluble fiber, clingy AF, right? So, and then soluble fiber, and of course that's a joke for only a nutrition professional can really get, but that's all inherent in that. And then I might link that to a post on soluble fiber. So I combine the humor with the education, right? And then you got, there's some vitamin D jokes on there. That's easy, right? That's easy. Yeah, you got to go on there because, like, you know, relationships are something that we can all relate to.
Absolutely.
Food is my thing, so I try and use relationship jokes and food jokes together, and then lead that to education.
Listen, we're all about jokes.
Did you take any writing classes or stuff like that, or was this just a passion that you had and you just worked on it on your own, or?
I think I just think I always had a thing for writing. I didn't take any classes.
Okay.
You know, I was not one to take extra classes when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah.
Probably too busy playing video games, realistically. No, honestly, it's just something that came naturally to me. So I'm not going to pretend like I have some special method. I think I was kind of fortunate that I just liked it. And I was decent. And I'm not like a technical writer. Like, don't ask me how to use a comma.
Right.
I have no idea.
No, I don't think that's I think a lot of people who want to be writers give an overly high degree of importance to things like where do you put a comma?
A semicolon, forget. Okay, comma. I think I know how to use a comma. Semicolon.
Semicolon. I definitely don't know.
Yeah. I'm not a technical writer. I'm like a creative writer. Like I can
Right.
put the words together in a compelling way.
Right.
But yeah, you know what? You'll probably find some grammar errors in my blogs.
Mhm.
In fact, you'll probably find a number of them, and I'm not proud of that.
Yeah.
But it's a reflection that I'm not a scholarly writer. I'm not like an Oxford English grad.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the Queen's English.
And I mean,
shall we say.
especially when you're working with things like nutrition, it's really, you know, to be able to make that approachable to people, I think that's more important than where you put a comma and semicolon.
Well, I mean,
That's what I
apparently,
tell myself.
Yeah.
That's an excuse I tell myself.
I don't know if it's still true today, but apparently newspapers are written at a third grade level. Anyways, you know,
What?
so like
Or sixth grade, probably.
yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
to make sure the
To
most
make
people
sure
possible
can
can understand.
what's going
Fair.
on. Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible that's
So,
the case.
I'm not 100% sure that's
Or
fact.
8th grade, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's lower than high school or university level writing, you know, for sure. You know,
Right.
because I guess, well, I don't know what the reasoning before. I'm sure there's some psychological or some psychology research that was done on that. So
Depends on the paper and the demographic, because you don't want to alienate the readership.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So just got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
A couple of last final questions.
Yeah.
One was, what other foods do you love outside of kale?
Okay. Right now, avocado's big. Frozen pomegranate. I love frozen pomegranate.
Frozen specifically?
Yeah, I love frozen
It's
pomegranate.
hard to undo a pomegranate.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't know how to describe it.
No.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I've never purchased a pomegranate in my life. Frozen pomegranate all day. It's on sale.
Yeah.
On sale at Metro.
So is it just pomegranate? It's just the seeds,
just
right?
the seeds?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got some at home. I can't wait to have some later. Avocado. I already said that.
Yeah,
I
you already
said
said avocado.
Tofu's big, and then my rainbow trout. You know what I mean? Red bell peppers is the thing I eat with my kale every night. So red bell peppers, or any bell pepper rather, raw.
Yeah.
So those are my
Raw.
favorites.
Okay.
In terms of food that you would not expect a dietitian to say, you know, because I'm a normal person, I love ice cream cake. That's like,
really,
you know, I eat ice cream cake at every opportunity.
Wow.
Or any cake, chocolate cake as well. And obviously I eat chocolate. I mean, and chips. I eat chips often with dinner, and I eat a lot of chocolate. So just I'm a normal person. You know, I have foods that make me happy, and I eat foods that make me happy. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get a ice cream cake from? I feel like I haven't.
I don't go out of my way to buy it. If I'm at a party, I have ice cream cake.
I'm just trying to figure out because I'm thinking,
Baskin Robbins, Dairy
Yeah.
Queen.
Are they? I don't even know where they are right now.
Well, we'll talk
Actually,
after.
They're in the
Wait.
ice cream aisle.
Well, if they sponsor us, we'll talk after.
And the last question. This is a thing I've been wanting to ask everybody.
Right.
Which I love this question because people come up with different answers all the time, and it's
Yeah.
unrelated to like specifically food or
Right.
diet.
I refuse to answer it then. No, I'm just.
Would you prefer to be the first in something or the best at something?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'm like I've always in my life been someone who's like been a little bit slow starter. I'm a
Mhm.
slow starter, so I have to pick the best. Because if I was saying the first, like I don't think it would mean anything. Because I've never been someone to do things to be quick off the block.
Mhm.
I start slow and I get myself together later on, and then I kind of thrive once I'm rolling. So I'm gonna go with the best.
Well, I feel like you're the first to do something called calligraphy, though.
Okay, sure, yeah. I mean, on some level, but I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person who has helped people with their writing, and I branded it in a unique way.
Understandable, yeah, that's true.
But I don't think I've done any I don't think I've done anything so revolutionary. That's the first. I think I'll stick with trying to be the best, although obviously I got a long way to go. But
Understandable, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you
awesome,
very
man.
much,
Thanks
Andy.
so much,
That was a
guys.
lot of fun. Please If anybody want to get in touch with you, please let them know how they can do that.
Yeah, so my handle is Andy the RD. So ANDYTHERD, and RD just stands for Registered Dietitian. So that's my website, andytherd.com. My Instagram is andytherd. That's all you have to know. I'm sure he's going to drop that in some sort of text thing as well.
I'm going to figure out. No, he might be doing that now. Yeah. He doesn't know it yet.
Please, follow me on Instagram and check out my blog because, like I said, I put a lot of work into all the stuff that I do. So that's it.
I also did want to, I know I asked you to plug everything, but I wanted to talk to you. You're going to be speaking at Ryerson soon. So I wanted to ask you about any new projects or any new engagements you'll be doing very soon.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the main thing to look out for me is to check out Amazon because I got books coming out this year. And if anyone is in a company where they want a presentation on nutrition or healthy eating or anything like that, I do corporate presentations. So yeah, reach out. But go type my name on Amazon and look up for my new books and my old books, or go to Indigo. Maybe they're still there. I think there's like one copy, one like Mercy copy somewhere.
Great. Thanks, Andy, for coming through. Really appreciate it. Harris.
Yes, sir.
How can people find you? You are the co-host. Is this a permanent thing? Please tell me this is a permanent thing. Just put it
after today. It is.
After today. I
feel like we're in a probationary period.
This is a self-probation. I want to say, right? This is
self-induced.
Self-induced probation.
Self-administered.
You can find me on Instagram. Probably is the best at HARI Harry_Nadeem NADWEM, or my YouTube channel, which is I don't know actually how you find a YouTube channel. I think it's just Harris Nadeem.
What do you post about? What do you name them?
I think it's just Harris Nadeem. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. Go to the Instagram.
You can
find the YouTube channel from there.
How don't you know how you search your own stuff?
I'm new at this stuff, man. I'm bad at it.
Yeah, but when I post a podcast on YouTube, I know people should search Young Pros Talk.
Yeah, because I was branding it. Anyways, it's not important. Harris Nadeem. You'll find it.
All right. Thanks. And as always, you can find us on. I lost my train of thought. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Young Pros Talk. Please check us out on YouTube, Young Pros Talk as well. The podcast is on Spotify. It's on Stitcher. It's on SoundCloud. It's on iHeartRadio now. It's on TuneIn Radio now. Wow. It's everywhere you can find a podcast. Please check it out. You want to get in touch with us, send us an email, youngprostalk@gmail.com. Young Pros Talk. Thanks for listening.